The first warning wasn't a sound. It wasn't silence either. It was the dog. He just stopped walking. One paw raised, tail still, eyes locked forward. That was it. That was the moment Lena knew something was wrong. Not maybe, not possibly. It was clear. Rex had never done that before. Let me take you back to where it all began. My amazing friends and family, welcome back to Jenna's Velvet Tales. Before we continue, please take a moment to subscribe. Every subscription helps us share more emotional stories about the deep bonds between humans and animals. If this kind of story touches you, your support truly means a lot. Feel free to say where you're watching from, and don't forget to explore more beautiful stories here on the channel. Now back to the story. Lena Crowley had been a combat medic for almost 9 years. She had seen a lot. Things that people didn't talk about. Loss, fear, things that stayed with you even when you tried to sleep. But she hadn't grown cold. Not even after everything. She still cared. That's why they picked her for this mission. It was meant to be simple. Just a village check. No danger. No chaos. Just a sick child. She was supposed to go in, check on the boy, maybe hand over some antibiotics, and come back before sunset. That's what they told her. You'll be back before dinner, her team leader had said, handing her the file. She remembered nodding, trusting, not thinking twice. The truck ride was long. Dry wind came through the cracked window, and dust stuck to her lip balm. She checked the mirror. Rex was in the back seat, still and focused. Not panting, not looking out, just sitting, ears slightly tilted like he was already paying attention. That was Rex. Others might joke or complain to fill the silence. But not him. He didn't need noise. He only needed to see, to sense, to watch. That's what made her feel safer with him than most of the people she worked with. She reached back and tapped his chest. One quick trip. Okay? Then food. Maybe chicken if we're lucky. He blinked once. His way of saying all right. The road narrowed after the last military stop. It wasn't a checkpoint anymore. It was just one soldier leaning against a metal pole who waved her through without even asking for her papers. Trees leaned in closer than they should have. Branches scratched the side of the truck, and she turned down the music, just in case. The sky was clear but felt heavy, like something was waiting. Her phone lost signal, but that was expected. She flipped on the radio and called in her location. No answer. She tried again. Still nothing. Maybe they're switching channels, she whispered. Maybe. She reached the location on her map. A small wooden home with a rusted fence. The gate hung sideways, broken at one hinge. A bike was lying on its side in the yard, front wheel turning slowly. One boot was left by the porch steps. No one came out. She sat still for a moment, hand resting on the steering wheel. Then she opened the door. The ground was soft beneath her boots. Rex hopped out behind her, but his pace was slower. His steps were light, almost silent. He didn't sniff around. He just stayed close, like something told him this wasn't normal. She knocked on the door. Once. Then again. Nothing. Medical unit, she called out. I'm here to help. No sound. Not even movement inside. She turned the doorknob. It wasn't locked. It gave way easily. She pushed the door open. The inside was lived in, not abandoned. A cup sat on the table with tea still inside. A folded blanket rested on the back of the couch. The curtains weren't drawn tight. Light peeked through. A pair of glasses sat on a small shelf. Someone had just been there. She took 2 steps in. Rex didn't follow. She turned and looked back. He was standing in the doorway, body tight, ears alert. He didn't move. Then, after a few seconds, he sat. Right there, blocking the entrance. That's when her chest got tight. He never did that on missions. Never sat like that. Not inside a search space. Not without reason. She backed up. I scanned the room again. There was no sign of violence. No smell of anything bad. But still it felt wrong. Too clean. Too quiet. Like whoever had been there didn't plan to stay gone, but also knew not to come back. She moved toward the kitchen. The drawers were open. A plate in the sink. One was broken in the trash. A fork sat half-submerged in the sink water. Someone had left fast. Really fast. She stepped back outside, trying to collect her thoughts. Her heart was beating harder now. Not panic yet, but close. She walked around to the back of the truck, opened the storage flap, and froze. The spare battery pack for her comms missing. The extra first aid kit gone. The small satellite device not there. She never forgot to pack those. They had never been loaded. She stared for a long time. She didn't move. She just stood there, thinking, breathing, watching her own breath leave her body. She whispered, "No. No way." She looked at Rex. He was facing the woods now. Tail low, head still. She followed his gaze. There was movement. Slow. Careful. Not fast like running. Not loud like rushing. Just soft. Shadows between the trees. Then another. They weren't in uniform. They didn't look like villagers. She couldn't see weapons, but she didn't need to. Something was wrong. Rex stepped in front of her. Didn't growl. Didn't move. Just stayed there. She knelt behind him slowly, her mind racing. She had no backup, no working comms, and no way to know how far the team really was, if they were ever coming. Her voice came out low. "Did they send us here to disappear?" Rex didn't look at her. His eyes never left the trees. The figures didn't come closer. They just stood there, watching. She stood slowly. She didn't want to wait anymore. They had to move. She turned and walked back to the front, past the house, back to the road. There was no sign of anyone, but she remembered something. A narrow side trail. She'd passed it earlier. Rex had paused near it, but she'd pulled him along. Now that was their only way. "Let's go," she said, tapping her thigh. Rex started walking. The path was steep. She had to hold onto roots to steady herself. One rock gave out beneath her boot and she slid hard down a section, cutting her hand. She gritted her teeth. Rex stopped, waited, then kept going once she caught up. The trail wound down into a quiet lowland, hidden by trees, shadowed by slope. She had no idea where it would lead, but going back wasn't an option anymore. They walked for what felt like forever. Then she stumbled again. Her leg gave out. She dropped to the ground. Dirt in her mouth. Arms weak. Her body had hit its limit. "I can't," she whispered, barely audible. Rex walked back. He sat next to her, close, then pressed his body against hers. She leaned into him. Everything had been stripped away. Her gear, her trust, her backup. But not him. Not the dog. He didn't leave. And that, my friends, is where everything changed. Lena sat still, her back against a rock. She could feel her pulse in her ears, fast and loud. Dirt clung to her face. Her palms were scraped. Her knee was starting to swell. But none of that scared her as much as the silence. Not the peaceful kind. The kind where something's watching, and you don't know where it is. Rex didn't move. He sat close enough that she could feel his breath on her arm. His eyes kept scanning the woods. Every few seconds, his ears twitched, but he didn't growl. He didn't bark. He just stayed ready. She looked down at her hand. Blood from the scrape had dried in a thin line. She wiped it on her pants. They were already torn. Her whole uniform looked like it had gone through a shredder. "Rex," she said softly, "we're not supposed to be out here, are we?" He glanced at her once, then looked away again. She let out a breath, shaky and low. "I trusted them." She leaned her head back and closed her eyes for a second. She tried not to think about her last conversation with Captain Brenner. How casual he'd sounded. How quickly he'd handed her the file. No hesitation. No second look. A twig snapped somewhere in the distance. Her eyes opened. She didn't move. Rex did. He stood slowly, ears forward, body stiff. His front paw lifted again just like before. Someone was coming. She pulled herself upright. Every muscle complained. Her leg felt like it was throbbing from inside the bone. Voices. Low. Careful. Not close but not far either. She leaned in close to Rex's ear. "We go now." Quiet. She started moving. Step by step. No talking. No sound. The trail bent around a cluster of large rocks. Trees on both sides. Sharp drop to the right. She kept one hand on Rex's back to steady herself. Then she heard it. The same voices. Closer now. One of them laughed. It wasn't loud. But it was wrong. This wasn't a rescue team. They weren't calling her name. They weren't even looking. They were just following. She moved faster. Her breath came shorter. Her knee burned with every step. Rex didn't leave her side. She found a small ditch off the path, just deep enough to crouch in. She ducked in, pulled Rex down beside her and held her breath. Footsteps. They walked right past. Didn't stop. Didn't look down. She waited. 10 more seconds. 20. Then it was quiet again. She slowly stood. Her legs shook, but she kept going. They were moving downhill now. That meant water. And if there was water, there might be a way out. But time was running short. The sun was starting to dip. The air felt colder. And she had no idea how far the nearest help was. She whispered, "We need to find shelter." They kept walking. 15 more minutes passed before they reached a break in the trees. An old wooden shed stood near a dry creek bed. It looked abandoned. The roof was sagging. The door hung open. It was enough. She stepped inside first. It smelled like dust and old wood. No sign of anyone. A broken chair, some rope, a rusted shovel in the corner. Rex walked in after her, circled once, and laid down near the wall. She sank onto the floor. Her body gave up. For the first time all day, she let herself feel how tired she was. She closed her eyes. Just for a moment. A sound woke her. Not a loud one. Just gravel shifting under a tire. A vehicle. Close. She sat up fast. Heart pounding. Rex was already at the door. She crawled to the edge of the shed and peeked out. A black SUV. Unmarked. Stopped near the creek. 2 men stepped out. One held something in his hand. Not a weapon. A phone. He checked it, nodded, and pointed up the trail. They were looking for her. But not to help. She stayed low. The men didn't look inside the shed. They turned and walked toward the woods. She waited. Watched until they were gone. Then she sat back, hand on Rex's neck. "What did we walk into?" she whispered. There was no answer. Just the quiet. She pulled her backpack off, opened the front pocket. 1 protein bar. A small water bottle. She broke the bar in 2 and gave half to Rex. He took it gently. She chewed slowly. Every bite felt like work. When they finished, she leaned against the wall. Everything inside her was tired. But something else had taken root. Not just fear. Not just pain. Anger. Not loud. Not wild. The kind that sat deep. That grew slowly. That stayed. They had sent her out. On purpose. They had removed the gear. Turned off her support. Lied to her face. Why? She didn't know yet. But she would find out. She closed her eyes. Rex stayed awake. The night passed in pieces. Short moments of sleep broken by sounds. By wind. By footsteps in the distance. At dawn, the light through the broken roof woke her. She sat up slowly. Her body stiff. Her mind clear. She had survived the night. Barely. But she wasn't done. She stood. Rex stood with her. They stepped out into the morning. And started walking again. Toward whatever came next. They moved slowly, but with purpose. Lena's leg ached more with each step. The swelling had spread to her ankle. She knew she'd need to stop again soon. Maybe wrap it. But the moment she thought of stopping, she remembered the SUV. The 2 men. The silence on the radio. And her body kept moving. The woods began to thin out after an hour. The slope eased. And she could hear running water in the distance. A stream, maybe. She looked at Rex. He was trotting now a little ahead, tail moving slightly. Not high, not relaxed, but alert. Focused. "Good boy," she said, almost to herself. They reached the stream around midday. The water was clear and cold. Lena dropped to her knees and cupped it with both hands, drinking fast. Then she let Rex drink freely. She washed the blood off her hand and tore a piece of her shirt to wrap her knee. It wasn't a real bandage, but it helped. She sat back and breathed. The first moment of peace in what felt like forever. A voice inside her whispered, "You should have known." But she didn't answer it. Not yet. She opened her pack and pulled out the last protein bar. Broke it again, shared it. Rex ate his piece, then sat beside her. That's when she heard it. A soft hum. Low. Faint. Like an engine but distant. She pressed her ear to the ground, like her brother used to do when they were kids. Yes. Wheels. A road. Clothes. She stood, wobbling slightly, and looked at Rex. "You ready?" He stood. They followed the stream until they found it. A narrow road, barely more than a dirt path. But it had tire tracks. Not the ones from earlier. These were older. Dry. But it was something. She took a deep breath and stepped onto the road. After about 15 minutes, she saw something in the distance. A building. Not a house. Not a shed. A ranger station. Small. Wooden. But there. She didn't smile, not fully. But her chest lifted just a little. As they got closer, she noticed the flag, torn but American. A ranger vehicle was parked beside the building. No one was visible through the windows. She knocked. No answer. She tried the door. It opened. Inside was quiet. Dusty but not abandoned. There was a desk. A radio. Maps on the wall. Coffee mugs. A jacket on the back of a chair. Someone worked here. Maybe they'd be back. She limped over to the desk and picked up the radio. She tried all 3 channels. No reply. She set it down. Her shoulders dropped. Rex walked the perimeter, sniffed the corners, then returned to her. She sat in the chair. Everything was catching up to her. Her hands, her ribs, her heart. How do you process being thrown away? She thought of calling Ramirez, but she couldn't. No signal. No number. And what would she even say? "Hi. They left me to die." It sounded too simple, too clean. When it wasn't, she heard something outside. Footsteps. Rex was already at the door. She stood behind the desk, grabbed the chair as a makeshift shield. Then the door opened, and there she was. Ramirez. Hair messy. Eyes wide. Out of breath. "Lena," she said. Lena didn't speak. Her mouth opened but nothing came out. Ramirez stepped inside, lowered her voice. "I went through your gear after you left. The tags were wrong. The backup beacon was missing. I called Brenner. He said you were already back." That hit Lena harder than the fall in the woods. "He said what?" "He said you checked in yesterday. That you were fine." Lena sank into the chair. Ramirez kept going. "I knew it was a lie. I took a rover and came this way. Used the old map. I've been driving all night." Lena looked at her, eyes stinging. "You shouldn't have come alone." Ramirez smiled. "Neither should you." They both laughed. Quiet. Tired. Lena looked at Rex. Still at the door. Still watching. "Come here," she said. He stepped forward. She leaned into him. Ramirez sat on the desk. "I'll get us out. There's a base 2 hours from here. They owe me a favor." Lena didn't answer. She was already crying. Silent. Shoulders shaking. Ramirez reached out and held her hand. No words. Just that. It was enough. The ranger vehicle was old, but it started on the second try. Lena sat in the passenger seat. Rex in the back, watching through the window, his ears twitching at every shift in the engine. Ramirez kept both hands on the wheel, glancing at Lena now and then but staying quiet. She didn't need to ask questions. Not yet. The road was tight, more gravel than pavement, with trees pressing in from both sides. No music. No noise except the tires rolling and the wind slipping through the crack in the window. For a long time, that was enough. Almost 40 minutes passed before Ramirez finally said something. "I think they planned it before you even got the file." Lena didn't react. Her face stayed still. Ramirez went on. "I heard them in the comms room, joking around. One of them said something about dead weight finally moved. I thought they meant broken equipment. I swear I did." Lena's voice was low. "They called me dead weight? I don't think it was personal," Ramirez said. "They just didn't want you there anymore. You were close with the dogs. You asked too many questions. That bothers some people." Lena looked down at her hands, still scraped, still aching. I trusted them. I know. Lena stared out the window. But the dog didn't. Ramirez nodded once. I saw how he looked at Brenner last week. Like he already knew. Lena whispered. He did. The rest of the ride was quiet. Another hour passed. Then, finally, they pulled into a small base. Hidden, quiet, not much more than a few buildings tucked into the trees. But there were radios. People. Lights. Lena held onto Rex's leash like a lifeline. She didn't let go, not even when a nurse walked over with a wheelchair. Lena waved her off. I can walk. She limped the whole way in, step by step, her leg burning with every move. But she refused the chair. Not because she was proud. Because she had to feel the ground again. She needed it. They gave her a bed, curtain, clean clothes. She didn't change. She sat on the edge of the cot, not moving, eyes open but distant. Rex curled up beside her, head resting on his paws, breathing steady. Ramirez came back with a bowl of soup. She didn't say anything. She just sat on the floor, handed the bowl over, and waited. After a few minutes, Lena picked up the spoon. Halfway through, she looked at Ramirez. Did they report me dead? Ramirez hesitated. No. Missing. Lena looked down. Same thing. Ramirez said nothing. It's fine, Lena whispered. You came. That's what matters. Later that night, Lena couldn't sleep. Her body hurt, but that wasn't what kept her up. It was the part inside that ached, the part that had believed in rules, in rank, in family. She thought of her mother, the last conversation they had, how tired her voice sounded, how she didn't remember if Lena was overseas or home. She thought of her brother, the lake trip, how he pulled her back when the current got too strong, how he never said a word about it after. She thought about how much she used to believe that if you gave everything, you'd be safe. Now she knew better. The next morning, a man in a perfectly ironed uniform came into her room. His name was Foster. His smile was wide, rehearsed. Sergeant Crowley, he said. We're very relieved to see you well. Lena didn't return the smile. We've heard there may have been a miscommunication with your mission, he said. We're reviewing things. Please know your safety is our highest concern. She didn't blink, didn't move. I'd like your version of events, he said, in a written report, just for protocol. Lena leaned forward, her voice even. You want my version? Yes. What will you do with it? We'll file it, review it, maybe adjust procedure. Lena looked at the floor, then back up. And Captain Brenner? We'll look into everyone involved. She shook her head. No report. But, no. He waited. She didn't speak again. When he finally left, Rex got up from the floor, walked over and sat beside her leg. She reached down, rested her hand on his back. I'm not wasting breath on people who forget, she whispered. 3 more days passed. They offered her leave. She refused. They suggested counseling. She said maybe but never showed. Each night she slept on the floor next to Rex. Not on the bed. She needed the weight of the ground, the feeling that she couldn't fall further. On the 4th day, Ramirez showed up with a brown folder. I printed everything they deleted. Lena opened it. Inside were maps, mission files, names, 5 in total. All 5 signed off on the operation. Only 2 were still on base. The rest, reassigned. Your name, Ramirez said, was never in the debrief. Lena didn't react. She closed the folder. What will you do with it? Ramirez asked. Lena stood, picked up her pack, looked at Rex. He stood with her. I'm going back. Back where? To the dogs. Ramirez smiled. You still want to serve? No, Lena said softly. I want to be where the truth lives. They stepped into the sun. And this time she didn't look back. One afternoon, a little girl came by with her dad, who worked in maintenance. The girl pointed to Rex and asked, Is he your dog? Lena knelt down beside her. No, I'm his person. The girl giggled. Rex leaned forward and let the girl pet him. And in that moment, Lena felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. Because no matter what they erased from the files, he remembered. He chose to stay. And sometimes that's all the truth you need. That's how she survived. Not because the system remembered her, but because the dog did. And he never forgot. 3 months later, the phone rang at 2:11 a.m. Lena was awake. She had been for an hour, sitting on the back porch of the K9 quarters, watching the wind move through the trees. Rex was asleep beside her, curled like a comma against the wooden boards. The call didn't surprise her. She answered it with a voice that didn't waver. Crowley. A pause. Then a voice she hadn't heard in weeks. Colonel Archer. A name with weight. Not the kind who called for small things. Sorry to wake you, he said. You're not. There was another pause, longer. We need your help. Lena stared at the trees. I don't serve anymore. I know. Then why call? It's Rex. Her eyes narrowed. What about him? There's been a breach. Now she sat up straighter. What kind of breach? Archer exhaled. One of the units, Bravo 6, they took files. Training logs, dog patterns, deployment records, including Rex's. Lena didn't speak. They're not with us anymore. They've gone dark. And the worst part? They knew you were here. She looked down at Rex. Still asleep. Still trusting. What do they want? She asked. We don't know. But they've asked for coordinates. Not weapons. Not codes. Locations. Places our K9 units have been sent. Lena stood. Send me everything. Archer hesitated. You're not cleared. Then clear me. Another pause. I'll send a runner. Lena hung up and looked down at Rex. He stirred, ears twitching, then sat up beside her. She whispered, I think we're not done yet. He stared at her and didn't blink. That morning, the sun rose without color. Just a pale light that touched everything but warmed nothing. By noon, the runner arrived. He handed her a sealed envelope and a flash drive. Didn't say a word. She waited until he left before opening it. Inside was a map, and a name she hadn't heard since the beginning of her service. Elias, the contact who never showed up. The name that vanished from every report. The one loose thread she'd buried and now had to pull. She closed the file, turned to Rex. We're going. He didn't need a leash. He just followed. Because some things are bigger than orders. Some things are personal. The town they drove to wasn't marked on any map Lena trusted. The roads were narrow, filled with potholes and faded signs. Most of the homes looked abandoned. A few still had clothes drying on lines, but no people outside. Just quiet. The kind that isn't peaceful, it's watched. She parked the truck near the edge of a small hill. Rex jumped out first, nose to the air, his steps careful. He wasn't just sniffing for animals or people. He was remembering. Lena stood beside him and opened the map again. The red mark pointed to a barn behind a gas station that hadn't sold fuel in years. He's there, she said softly. Or someone wants us to think he is. Rex looked up at her, then back at the barn. They walked together. The gravel crunched under her boots. A dog barked once in the distance, then stopped. Lena didn't rush. She knew better now. As they neared the barn, she saw the lock on the door had already been cut. Inside, it smelled of oil and old hay, and someone had been there recently. Footprints in the dust, a still warm cup of coffee on a workbench. Lena scanned the room, slow and steady. Elias, she said quietly, if you're here, I'm not looking for revenge, just answers. A voice came from behind a stack of crates. Low, tired. Then you came to the wrong place. Lena didn't flinch. I almost died because of you, and I almost died trying to stop it. He stepped out, older, thinner, his beard gray and uneven. His hands shook slightly as he held them out. No weapons, he said. Rex stood between them, tail still, body tense. I was supposed to meet you, Elias said. I know. I got the orders. But then something changed. The route shifted. I never saw your name again. They erased it, Lena said. Not just yours. They erased the whole op. And then they started doing it more. Little missions. Always with someone alone. Always with dogs. Lena's jaw clenched. Why? Because no one reports a K-9 casualty the way they report soldiers. And no one asks questions when medics disappear quietly. He walked to the bench and sat. I kept notes, he said. Files. Names. I sent them to the wrong person once. That's why I vanished. It was either that or end up the same way you almost did. Lena stepped closer. Why contact me now? Because they're not hiding anymore. They're recruiting. She frowned. Recruiting who? Dogs. And handlers. People who won't be missed. Rex let out a breath. Not a growl. Just breath. Elias stood again. Walked to a box in the corner. Opened it. Inside was a collar. Worn. Blood-stained. And a tag. Lena's stomach turned. She picked it up. Rico. Elias nodded. He was the first. They tested on him. Sent him blind into a minefield. Claimed it was error. It wasn't. Lena closed her eyes. I tried to stop them, Elias said. But it's deeper than one base. This goes all the way up. She looked at him. Then we expose it. You'll be hunted. I already was. He nodded. Then we start here. Rex sat beside her. Still. Waiting. Because he knew, again, what she did not. This wasn't over. It had only just begun. They stayed in the barn that night. Elias had made it into something halfway between a shelter and a hiding place. Blankets on crates. A small propane stove. Stale crackers and instant coffee. Lena didn't sleep much. She sat with her back against the wall, her eyes on the door. Rex never left her side. Every sound made him glance up. Elias fell asleep early. His breathing heavy, uneven. He snored softly, like someone who hadn't rested in years. Lena didn't mind. At least someone still believed in sleep. Around 3 a.m., she heard a soft thud outside. Not an animal. Not wind. She reached slowly for the knife in her boot. Rex stood, silent, watching the barn door. Lena moved to the side window and peeked out. 2 figures. Flashlights off. Walking slow. No uniforms. She whispered. 2. Right side. Rex's body was still, but his ears locked in. She moved to Elias and shook him once. We've got company. He was on his feet fast. He grabbed a flashlight, but Lena stopped him. No light. They crouched by the back door. Tunnel, Elias whispered. Under the crates. Leads out the side wall. I used it last year when... They're circling. Elias nodded. Go first. I'll follow. Lena dropped down, lifted the crate, and found the hatch. Wooden. Heavy. She pushed it open and slid in. Dirt. Cold. Tight space. Rex followed without hesitation. Elias came last, closing the hatch behind them. They crawled 30 feet before the tunnel opened into a field behind the barn. Long grass. No cover. But distance. Where's the truck? Elias asked. Other side of the hill. They didn't run. Just moved fast and low. Rex scanned constantly. Then another sound. From the hill. A flashlight beam swept low. They're trying to flush us out, Lena whispered. We need to get to the truck. No. We need to know who they are. She turned to Rex. Track. He moved immediately. They circled wide, keeping to shadows. Rex led them toward the road, and then suddenly stopped. In front of them, parked just behind a row of trees, was a black SUV. Windows tinted. Engine cold. Inside the car, Lena saw a laptop. Open. A folder on the screen labeled Phase 2. She moved closer. Tried the door. Unlocked. She reached in, grabbed the laptop, and backed out. We're going, she said. Back at the truck, Elias climbed into the back. Rex jumped in next. Lena drove. They didn't speak until they were 10 miles out. Then Elias opened the laptop. What's in it? Lena asked. He read silently. His face changed. Then he said 2 words. They're testing. On what? Dogs. People. Comms blackouts. Abandonment scenarios. It's not just to kill. It's to study reactions. What people do when the system forgets them. Lena gripped the wheel tighter. They're trying to map trauma, Elias said. And they're using us to do it. Lena said nothing. She just drove. Because this wasn't a mission anymore. It was a war they never knew they were part of. And they were already deep in it. They drove until the sky started to pale. Just before sunrise, Lena pulled off the highway into an abandoned rest stop. Weeds grew through the pavement. The roof of the old building had caved in on one side. Still, it felt safer than the open road. Rex jumped out first. Ears up. He scanned the lot. No movement. Lena stayed in the truck a moment longer, gripping the wheel. Then she stepped out. Her knees ached. Her hands were shaking, but not from fear. From the weight of knowing too much. Elias carried the laptop inside. They sat on the floor behind a broken vending machine. Lena opened the folder labeled Phase 2. There were images, satellite maps, GPS logs, photos of handlers, dogs. Some were crossed out, others marked with colored tags. Lena recognized two faces. One was Sergeant Milner, her old trainer. The other was a girl named Courtney. Barely 20, cheerful, always brought extra snacks for the dogs. Both had been listed, lost in transport months ago. They're planning another run, Elias said, pointing at the timestamps. In 2 days. Where? He zoomed in. A camp, near the border. Still marked as active, but Lena knew it had been shut down last year. They're sending them in there, she said, thinking it's operational. They're going to trap them. She closed the laptop. We can't stop them from here. Elias looked at her. Then we go in? We have to warn them. Rex moved closer, pressing his head to Lena's leg. She placed her hand on his back. You ready? She asked him. He stayed still, but his eyes never left hers. They left the rest stop and headed north. It took them hours, winding through side roads and old trails. They stopped only once for fuel and food. The gas station clerk didn't ask questions. Maybe he saw the look in Lena's eyes. Maybe he knew better. By sunset, they reached the old camp perimeter. It was quiet, too quiet. Lena pulled out her binoculars. She saw 3 tents, a Humvee, and 2 figures moving slowly near the fire pit. Not military, Elias said. No markings. They're already here. She looked at Rex. Track the rest. He moved low, weaving through scrub and brush, ears twitching. He returned within minutes, circling once. More inside, Lena said. Elias nodded. How do we warn the handlers? We go in. She loaded her small pack. Just medical gear. A flashlight. The drive. She handed the laptop to Elias. If we don't come back, get this to Ramirez. She'll know what to do. He hesitated. You sure? No, Lena said. But I can't let more of them vanish. She stood. Rex stood with her. And together, under a darkening sky, they walked toward the trap, hoping they weren't already too late. They moved in silence. The camp wasn't large, 5 tents, 2 trucks, and a portable comms tower. Lena and Rex stayed low behind a storage crate while they waited for movement. One man passed by, humming to himself, unaware. Another stood near the generator, arms crossed, head down. Neither looked alert. Lena scanned the tents. There, she whispered, pointing to the second one. Handler tent. She moved quickly. Rex stayed glued to her side. Inside the tent, it smelled of sweat and gun oil. A young man sat on a cot, cleaning a rifle. When he looked up, his eyes widened. Don't move, Lena said, raising one hand. He froze. I'm not here to hurt you, but you're walking into a setup. He squinted. You military? Was. Now I'm trying to stop people like them. She tossed him a folded paper. Coordinates. Names. Proof. He read it slowly. Where's your dog? She asked. In the crate outside. Go get him. Quietly. Then get out through the tree line. East side. He stood, uncertain. Who are you? Someone they left behind. She didn't wait for a thank you. Rex led her to the next tent. 2 handlers. Both asleep. She woke them the same way. No noise. Just truth. The folder. The names. The orders that didn't come from anywhere real. Within 20 minutes, for handlers and their dogs were slipping into the trees, one by one. Then the noise started. A sharp whistle. Not from her. Elias. A signal. They were compromised. Lena ran. Rex ahead of her. Back toward the tree line. Back to where the truck waited. Gunfire cracked behind them. Not aiming to hit. Just a warning. But Lena kept going. She reached the edge of the camp and saw Elias waving wildly. In. Now. She dove into the passenger seat. Rex leapt in behind her. Elias hit the gas. They didn't stop until the road vanished behind them and the camp was miles away. In the back seat, the laptop blinked. A single file uploading. To Ramirez. Everything. They reached the safe house by dawn. Quiet. Secure. Lena didn't sleep. She stood outside with Rex, watching the sun rise slow over the hills. Elias came out, coffee in hand. You saved them, he said. Not all of them, but some. That matters. She nodded. He handed her a folded paper. A list of bases. More missions. More names. I can't do this without you, he said. She looked at Rex. He was sitting in the dirt, head tilted, eyes bright. You won't have to. Later that week, the military issued a press release. A glitch in the K9 deployment system. An apology. But no names. No story. Except one. Told quietly. By those who got out. And remembered the woman who didn't flinch. And the dog who never turned away. Lena never asked for credit. She just kept moving. Base to base. Town to town. Leaving behind safety. But carrying truth. And Rex? He never left her side. Because trust, once broken, doesn't come back easy. But loyalty? Loyalty stays. Even in silence. Even in the dark. Even when the whole world forgets. He didn't. And that's why she made it out alive. Because in the end, it wasn't command or protocol or plans that saved her. It was the K9 who refused to leave. The combat medic trusted the wrong people. But the dog didn't fail her. And never would. Thank you to my amazing family for staying with me until the end of this story. Your support means the world to me. If you enjoyed this journey, I just know you'll love what comes next. I've prepared something even more exciting and surprising that I can't wait to share with you. Just click on the end card appearing on your screen right now to watch the next one.